You know, those football matches that just feel different. Like they've got more going on than just the 90 minutes. There's history, real rivalry, just this passion you can feel.
Mm-hmm.
And the big one, the one everyone thinks of, is El Clásico, right? Real Madrid, Barcelona. It's practically a cultural event.
Absolutely. It's huge.
And you, knowing you want to get right to the heart of what makes these rivalries tick, you brought us to this really interesting question about Japanese football. Does Japan actually have its own Clásico?
It's a great question, and the sources you sent over, especially that piece from August 2013 by only the title, right? The day the Shinshu Derby becomes Japan's Clásico, the rare rivalry relationship brought about by historical fate, it really dives into this.
Okay.
So yeah, our mission today is to explore this rivalry between Matsumoto Yamaga FC and AC Nagano Parceiro. We want to figure out why some people think this matchup, has the makings of a real Clásico, even though people usually call it the Shinshu Derby.
Gotcha. So Shinshu Derby. But before we jump into that specific one, let's just clarify what Clásico actually means. It's not just any old derby, is it?
No, definitely not. There's a weight to it. The original El Clásico started way back like 1902. That really sets the bar.
Wow, 1902.
Yeah, and in Spanish, it means the traditional match, or you could even say national derby. Obviously, Real versus Barca is the most famous one globally.
Right.
But you've got similar big rivalries elsewhere. Think El Clásico in Portugal, Porto, Benfica, Le Classique in France, PSG, Marseille.
The Dutch one, too, the Klassiker, Ajax, Feyenoord.
Exactly. And the Super Clásicos in South America, like Boca versus River Plate in Argentina, these aren't just games,
Yeah.
They often reflect bigger cultural divides, sometimes even political ones.
Okay, so that makes sense. It's got that deeper layer. Now, thinking about the J League in Japan, when it started up, were there attempts to kind of create that sort of national rivalry feel? I seem to remember some matchups being talked about.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, there definitely were. In the early days, you heard names thrown around like Verdy Kawasaki against Yokohama Marinos or Kashima Antlers versus Jugalo Iwata, maybe even Urawa Reds against Gamba Osaka sometimes.
Right, I remember those. So what happened? Why didn't they quite stick as the definitive Clásico?
Well, it's complicated. Those matches were definitely intense, lots of passion, for sure. But they didn't consistently capture that traditional match spotlight for the whole country.
Why not, do you think?
A few things, probably. The J-League landscape kept changing, teams rising, teams falling. Plus, compared to Europe or South America, Japan's pro league history is much shorter.
Right, less time for those really deep roots to form.
Exactly. A proper Clásico often needs that long history, that continuous thread of, well, sometimes animosity or at least consistent high-stakes competition. Even the Tama River Clásico SC Tokyo versus Kawasaki Frontale that started around 2007, it's a derby, it's got heat, but calling it a Clásico is still sort of an aspiration, Building that deep tradition takes time.
Okay, got it. Which brings us back to Matsumoto versus Nagano. Because the article in that movie Clásico you mentioned, they suggest this one is different. What's the secret sauce here?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting. There's this argument, and Professor Junichi Hashimoto from Shinshu University makes it quite strongly in the movie, that Matsumoto Nagano is maybe Japan's only real derby.
Only real derby. Wow. Why?
Because the conflict, the history between the two cities goes way, way deeper than just football. It existed long before the teams were even kicking a ball around at this level.
Deeper than football. Okay, now I'm hooked. Tell me more. What's the history?
So Professor Hashimoto points back to 1876. That's when Shikuma Prefecture, which had Matsumoto as its capital city, got absorbed into Nagano Prefecture.
So Matsumoto lost its capital status?
Exactly. Big blow to local pride, influence, you name it. And the article even mentions this rumor, it's unconfirmed, mind you, but a rumor about Nagano residents setting fire to the Chikuma prefectural office.
Whoa, really? Arson?
It's like I said, unconfirmed. But the fact that the story exists, that it's still talked about, tells you something about the level of bad blood back then.
Yeah, that's intense.
And ever since, there's been this undercurrent of resentment, maybe even jealousy, from Matsumoto towards Nagano, especially after Nagano got the Winter Olympics and then the Shinkansen bullet train line.
Big infrastructure projects, big prestige.
Huge boosts. And from Matsumoto's perspective, it probably felt like Nagano was getting ahead, maybe even at their expense. It just added more fuel to that old fire.
Okay, wow. So this isn't manufactured rivalry at all. It's baked into the history of the region. So how did all that baggage end up on the football pitch.
It just sort of naturally spilled over, didn't it? When you have that kind of long-standing tension between two places, sport becomes a really obvious outlet.
A new battlefield, almost.
Kind of, yeah. And what's really telling is that even when these teams were playing in the amateur leagues, the Hokushinetsu League, their matches were apparently incredibly intense. People were often surprised by how fierce it was for, a regional league game.
Okay, let's talk about the clubs themselves. Give us the background. Matsumoto Yamaga first.
Right, Matsumoto Yamaga FC. Their story starts back in 1965 as the Yamaga Club.
Yamaga Club. Where'd the name come from?
Apparently from a coffee shop near Matsumoto Station where the players used to hang out. Pretty quirky.
Ha. That's great.
And they were a real fixture in the Hokushinetsu League, that regional amateur league. Played in it for 35 straight seasons without getting relegated. Pretty solid record.
35 seasons.
Okay.
And Nagano.
AC Nagano Parceiro. They started later, 1990. Formed by some high school soccer alumni up in the northern part of Nagano Prefecture. They were originally called Nagano Elza.
Nagano Elza. Okay.
And they climbed up pretty fast, started lower down, got into the Hokushinetsu League by 2001, and actually won it in 2002.
So early on, Nagano maybe had the edge on the pitch. That sounds like they were rising faster.
Yeah, it seems that way. The article mentions Matsumoto was having a tougher time then. They even got relegated down to Division II of the Hokushinetsu League in 2004. But a really key moment for the rivalry happened in 2003. That's when Matsumoto formed their official supporters group, Ultras Matsumoto.
Ultras Matsumoto. Okay, that sounds serious.
And the first leader, a guy named Yukiya Hikida, he talked about feeling, kind of inferior to Nagano back then, both in terms of team strength and even the fans. He made this comment about Nagano's support being like a karaoke box, maybe implying it wasn't as passionate or organized as what they wanted to build.
Karaoke box.
Yeah.
That's fighting talk.
Yeah.
That underdog feeling, wanting to prove yourselves against the neighbors, that definitely pours gasoline on a rivalry.
Absolutely. And things kept developing. Nagano went corporate in 2007, renamed themselves AC Nagano Parceiro. They had clear J-League ambitions by then.
Right, making moves.
But here's what's fascinating. Mr. Hikida said that Matsumoto saw Nagano as a major threat, a future rival, way back in 2003. That's when they started calling the matches the Shinshu Derby.
So they labeled it early on.
Yeah. And get this, apparently even back then, some Matsumoto fans were privately calling it a Clásico.
No way. In 2003.
That's what the source suggests. Shows you how much emotional weight was already attached to it, even in the regional leagues. So you've got the history, the clubs are established, the fans are passionate. How did this play out when they actually met?
Yeah, exactly. How did the Shinshu Derby start grabbing headlines beyond just Nagano Prefecture?
Well, after Matsumoto got back up to the Hokushinetsu League Division I in 2006, things really started heating up. The crowds got bigger and bigger. People from outside the area started paying attention.
Any specific moments stand out?
Definitely April 29th, 2007, big derby match at Matsumoto's Stadium All-Win. They set a Hokushinetsu League attendance record, 6,399 people.
Wow, for a regional league game. That's impressive. Who won?
Nagano edged it 1-0, which, probably just made the rivalry even spicier.
Oh, for sure.
And the article makes a good point. Sometimes derby games aren't like the prettiest football. They can be tense, cagey, maybe not always top quality. But that's part of the derby dynamic, isn't it? The intensity, the emotion, that's what matters.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's about the stakes, the feeling. And it sounds like 2009 was a massive year for this.
Oh, 2009 was absolutely pivotal. They ended up playing each other 5 times that year.
5 times. How?
Across different competitions. They had their regular league games, then they met in the qualifiers for the National Club Championship and the Emperor's Cup qualifiers, and they even faced off in the semifinals of the National Club Championship itself.
That's insane, just constantly facing each other in high-stakes games.
Exactly. It just ramped everything up to 11. And that year ended with Matsumoto winning the big one, the National Regional League Promotion Series, which finally got them promoted to the JFL, the Japan Football League.
Ah, so they reached the national amateur level.
Yep, big breakthrough. And apparently that whole crazy, intense 2009 season is what the movie Clásico focuses on.
Makes sense. So the rivalry moved up a level into the JFL. Did Nagano follow them?
They did. Nagano got promoted to the JFL in 2011. So finally, the Shinshu Derby was being played on a national stage.
Okay. And what was the last derby match mentioned in the article?
The last one before the article was written was pretty dramatic. August 28th, 2011, it was the Emperor's Cup qualifying final for Nagano Prefecture, again at All-Win Stadium in Matsumoto.
High stakes again.
Totally. Finished 1-1 after extra time. Went to penalties.
Oh, boy. Nail-biter.
Sounds like it. Matsumoto won the shootout 9-8. Just imagine the tension. That kind of finish really sums up the rivalry, doesn't it?
Absolutely. That's pure Derby drama.
Yeah.
But the article says the Derby stopped after that. What happened?
Yeah, sadly, there was a break. 2011 was also the year that Matsumoto tragically lost their player, Naoki Matsuda. Passed away suddenly.
Oh, man. Yeah, I remember that. That was huge news. Devastating.
Absolutely devastating for the club, the fans, everyone. But incredibly, despite that immense loss, Matsumoto managed to rally, and they actually won promotion to J2, the second professional tier at the end of that very season.
Wow. That's quite a story in itself.
It really is. But because they went up to J2 and Nagano was still in the JFL, they were in different leagues. So, yeah, no more Shinshu Derbies since that penalty shootout in 2011, at least up to when the article was written.
Right. But the article back in 2013, it sounded hopeful about a comeback for the Derby. What was the outlook then?
Yeah, there was definitely optimism. Nagano had just gotten J League Associate membership status, which is a big step towards turning fully pro. And they were doing major renovations on their stadium, Minami Nagano Sports Park, aiming to meet J1 standards by early 2015.
So the pieces were falling into place.
It looked like it. The author, Utsunomiya-san, seemed pretty convinced the Shinshu Derby could be back on, potentially in the J League, maybe within just a couple of years from 2013.
And has it happened? Did they meet in the J League?
Well, not quite on that timeline. Things didn't line up perfectly like that, but the potential is still there, absolutely.
Because the history hasn't gone away.
Exactly. Those deep roots, that regional tension, it's all still there. The fan bases are still passionate. The memories of those crazy games in the Hokushinetsu League and the JFL are still strong. So the idea that the Shinshu Derby could eventually become a proper Clásico in the J League, that's still a real possibility, fueled by that unique history, something fans are definitely still waiting for.
Okay, so let's wrap this up.
All right.
What we got here with Matsumoto versus Nagano isn't just, another fixture. It's this clash shaped by over 100 years of regional history. Mm-hmm. That feeling of Matsumoto losing out when Naka became the prefectural center. Mm-hmm. You've got these really passionate fan groups, the Ultras Matsumoto on one side.
And dedicated Nagano supporters on the other.
And they were having these incredibly intense matches even way down in the amateur leagues. This feels organic. Like it grew out of real, long-standing local feeling, not something cooked up by a marketing department.
Precisely. It's a fantastic example, really, of how history and identity, that sense of place, can just pour into a sporting rivalry and give it this incredible energy that goes way beyond just who wins on the day.
It really makes you think, doesn't it, about what it takes for a rivalry to hit that Clásico level. We've seen the deep history and the passion here in the Shinshu Derby. So maybe a final thought for you to chew on.
Right.
What else is needed? Is it just having great games and high stakes enough? Or do you absolutely need that kind of deep-seated cultural or historical tension to truly make a rivalry legendary on a national scale? Definitely something to ponder.